extra quick, Scott.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Okay, so you're probably going to need your notebooks. Before we get back into the book, you're going to need your notebook because I want to share some things with you, if you don't mind. Hopefully these things will be beneficial. First off, and the whole reason I'm going to give you this strategy, which actually this strategy comprises of the best of a few strategies, are the ones I think that would be most beneficial to you. The thing that I noticed overall is your usage of time. So before I get into that, though, let's talk about what the strategy is. I call it the flyover identification strategy. Flyover identification strategy, and this really only works with the writing section. Flyover identification strategy and in this strategy we're going to drop some what I call EMD bombs. EMD, E, capital E, M, D. And you can write that under each other. E, M, D. E, write them like vertically. EMD. EMD. So I guess you pretty much figured out that it is an acronym. I mean, it's not really a word, but these letters do represent something. Okay. E stands for easy, M stands for medium, and D stands for difficult. Now what we want to do when we first open up the section, when we first start the section, is we don't want to quite start answering questions yet. We want to do what we call a flyover. And we want to go from the beginning to the end, and we want to read the questions. We're not really interested in the answer choices. We just want to read the questions, the sentences, about the writing section. And we want to start identifying them. And we want to identify them based on their level of difficulty. Now I know the test itself is made up, or supposedly is made up where they have, they start difficult and then get medium and hard and go back to easy. They start easy, go to medium and difficult, and go repeat that. But that's kind of relative, because if I don't know anything about subject-verb agreement, but the first question is subject-verb agreement, it don't matter how easy the question is, it's going to be difficult for me. So this flyover is you identifying the question based on your level, not based on how the test is supposed to be set up. So you're going to go through all the questions. You're going to read the sentences, because they are in essence questions. And the sentences that you know right off what the answer is probably going to be, of course you're going to write those as E. You're going to mark those E. The ones where you think you know, those are going to be the medium ones. Once you know nothing, this is like, no, this sentence is impossible, I have no idea what it could be, you're going to write D. You're going to do this very quickly, but not too fast, because this is ultimately going to save you time. Okay? So you don't have to do it like really fast, but you want to be thorough. Okay? Once you finish your flyover, all 35 of those questions, you can go back to the beginning, and now we're going to start answering them. But we're going to answer them in the order EMD. We're going to answer them in the order of EMD. Now, Of course, you know, you're not tied to anything when you do a strategy. You could do it however you want to do it. But, you know, the advice is that you should do it this way. So you're going to answer all the easy ones. You go back through the test and do all the medium ones. And you should notice that you have left about 12 minutes. About 12 minutes. In those 12 minutes, you can spend with the difficult ones.
So I answer all the easy questions?
Mm-hmm. Answer all the easy ones, and then answer the medium ones. And these are the ones that you decided were easy or medium, okay? Based on your studies, you know, because each one of you have a different level. I want to say different level, but each one of you have different things or grammatical concepts that are easy. What you think is easy, you might think is hard, and vice versa. So this is all going to be based on your judgment from reading those sentences. So those 12 minutes. Now let's talk about time. Okay, there's no need to rush with this, especially the writing section. There's no need to rush. When you come to the end and you have a few minutes, look back through the test. Just say you look through the test and you still got a few minutes. Look back through it again. There's nothing wrong with that. And usually when you're looking back through it, you're not looking back at the easy ones or even the medium ones. You're looking back at the difficult ones. Okay, but that brings me to what I want to show you up here. Okay. Now, I don't suspect anybody up here is trying to get 750. I don't suspect anyone in here is trying to get even 650. So thus, we need to start being very selective about the answer choices the questions that we answer. Why? Because you know there's a penalty for, getting them wrong. And that penalty really affects you in the writing section because the urge to answer all the questions in the writing section is very great. Much greater, than the reading section. So a lot of students like to answer all of them, and they're even told to answer all of them. But when you're being penalized, you can hurt yourself tremendously by trying to answer all of them. This is why you need to go through and identify the ones. The D questions, the difficult questions, those should be the first ones you skip if you're going to skip. And when you go back and you're looking at those deep questions, don't waste your time. Don't guess. Let those be the ones that you skip. So I'm just assuming most of you want like 550, maybe. That would probably your goal score, 550. 600? Okay, so you trying to go for 650 now? Okay, we won't be realistic, okay? All right? We want to be realistic when we're making our goal. Okay, I said, no, I want 750. Let's be realistic, okay? Okay, so let's just say your goal score is 550. Okay, so you already know that you got 35 questions on the 25-minute section, 14 questions on the 10-minute section. You don't want to answer them all. You want to go for a goal of 36 questions. Okay, that's how many you're going to go for. That means that in the 14, you're going to skip 4, and you're going to skip 9 in the 35. So that's how much you're going to skip, meaning you're not going to answer them. So you can imagine 9 difficult questions in the 35 question section, which it sounds reasonable. Probably is you have 9 or maybe more, and 4 in the 14, which is reasonable, because most people get to the end of 14, they skip those anyway. Those last 2 or 3, either because of time, because they're just too difficult. So, but you need to keep track of your skipping. So you want to answer a total of 36. Now, even though you answer 36, that's what you got to get right in order to get that 550. That's with about a 9 on the essay. It's with about a 9 or a 10 on the essay. Okay? So that's all you're looking for 550. And it seems easy. You can get that. All right? That's why I said be realistic. Now, when you get down here to 750, 700, this really doesn't matter. You got to answer them all. So you need to find where your score is on this chart and write down what you want, how many you need to answer, how many you can skip, and I would apply that. Now, this is the flyover identification method with pacing. Pacing is the best of another strategy. It is very effective, especially when you're talking about being penalized. This is the only reason that pacing exists, is because you are being penalized with this test for getting questions. Now understand, and make sure you write this down here, you need a 9 or a 10 on the essay to go with this, okay? So I don't do this and then come in. What's you write that for? Well, what about the essay? Okay, now I know you know some other strategies, and I'm not telling you to disregard them. It's just some of them I'm telling you to be very cautious about. And one of them is, of course, counting the questions and determining counting from one that, okay, this must be difficult and that must be difficult, those. Okay, yeah, that's true, but it's also relative to what you understand and what you consider difficult. So it's not always the best method. In other words, like skipping number 4 or 5, because but it's also based on you knowing all the grammatical rules. Then you probably could apply that. Then you got your choose the shortest answer choice strategy, which is the most classic of them all. And however, it doesn't always work now, especially with them making all the answer choices the same, so forth and so on. So I think we want to rely on knowledge more than anything, even above and beyond this strategy. The flyover identification method does rely heavily on knowledge. So let's open our books up. There's a little handbook at the beginning here, and this little handbook is just a review of basic parts of speech grammar. Basic parts of speech. So, you don't have to, look at it now, but at some point, you definitely need to know the parts of speech. For sure, you can. If you feel you don't know that stuff, you can rip those out of the book and take them home with you and put them under your pillow. But the parts of speech, obviously, you need to know. Whenever you're talking about trying to learn a grammar concept, you got to know the 8 parts of speech. We all know that, yes? And the basic stuff that goes along with the 8 parts of speech, okay? Okay. Now, I know we went over pronoun usage at the beginning of the year, yes? Anyone struggle with pronouns? No? Nobody struggles with pronouns? Yes? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's hold back on this. Let's go down to the test here, and let's see how we fare before we deal with that. Because a lot of these pages that you're flipping through, you're going to tear them out and take them home and work them because that's what they are designed for. Okay. Tell me if I'm right or not. Hopefully we're on the same page. The first question started with after the light. Everybody got after the light? First question. Flight. Oh, okay. Flight. After the flight. Okay, that's always a big problem. Somebody has a different book. Huh? We got the same. Okay, all right, okay. All right, so let's look at this question. We're going to go over each one. We're not so much concerned about, what you got your score in as much as we are with you understanding what's going on. After the flight, Justin's new coat was equally as ripped as Anthony's. And Miss Heidi, what do you think they were trying to test us on with this sentence? Okay, comparison. Trying to make a comparison. Did anybody not see that? Everybody saw that? Yeah. Okay. All right. What'd you get? Hebo, what'd you get for number 1?
E.
Okay. All right. Everybody got E?
I said C.
I mean,
I said C. I said C.
You said C. Okay. You said E.
C.
You said C. Okay. Okay, tell me why you said C. Hmm?
I just thought equally wasn't needed, so I just thought it would be better without it.
Okay. Is that what it was?
Correct.
Okay.
One
So,
of you chose E when he's comparing Anthony to the Pope.
okay. All right. You see that equally ripped as Anthony. So,
You mentioned that before Anthony.
hmm?
And E, didn't we mention that before Anthony and E? Is that of Anthony? That of so that would
Oh, that of
be
Anthony.
gadget?
So it doesn't seem like Anthony was the one ripped.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was ripped up. He was really bloody scene there. No, actually, you're right. It is going to be C. And we didn't need equally, even because, I mean, we are comparing, obviously. And we don't need equally as shows us everything we need to know as far as comparison. Yeah, so right beside number 1, comparison. Comparison. Now there are certain expressions that indicate comparison right off when we see them, and as is one. There's a smaller list that I gave. You have been studying that list, right? Comparison list. Okay. All right. Number 2, the municipal government concerned about the number of traffic accidents involving bicycles has passed a law requiring registration of every vehicle. It takes effect on January 1st. Do we find anything wrong with that? Kareem?
I chose A.
Okay. So you said nothing wrong with that? Everyone agrees? No? Well, what's wrong with you, Miss Simon?
Could be that it's missing a semicolon.
Mr. Semicolon. Okay. All right, let's make some notations in our notebook. Okay, so how do we attack sentence questions? And I like call it attack because you got to have some game plan when you're dealing with these sentences. My best advice is to look at the sentence in parts and look at it as a whole at the same time. Don't just look at it as a whole, and don't just look at it in parts. Because you have to look at it as a whole, because you can't, in other words, don't just look at the underlined part for sure. Okay, we have to consider the entire sentence. But we also need to understand that the sentence is made up of phrases and clauses. And the more we recognize, especially the clauses, the better we're going to be at, detecting what the problem is. So we definitely need to be able to identify the clauses. We don't want to look at just the underlined part. So we want to do both at the same time, looking at as a whole and looking at in parts. Yes? Now, if we did that with this sentence, we definitely would have noticed that we got a subject verb in the underlined part. We got a subject verb relationship, right? And other than dependent clauses, and these are the things that should be running through your mind. Other than dependent clauses coming before an independent clause, there shouldn't be a comma there. I mean, unless we're talking about some unnecessary information. And I don't think that there is any unnecessary information. Now we're considering the sentence as a whole. So obviously there's a problem with the comma. We can call it a comma splice if we like, And I think the best correction for that would be E. To just replace the comma with the semicolon. So here we're going to put sentence structure down here. So here we definitely needed some information. We needed some prior knowledge of sentence structure to help us out. So that would come in handy. Okay, let's go to the next. Libby's grandfather, who carries several sets of keys, sets off the metal detector at airports more often than her relatives. Okay, all right. Miss Heidi. Can we choose A?
No.
No. What's the problem?
The
Hmm?
comparison.
Is another comparison? Okay, you agree with that, correct? Yeah. What's being compared? Or what is supposed to be, or what do you think the author was intending to be compared?
Setting off the metal detector.
With what?
Oh my bad. I mean, like the amount of times she sets them off.
Okay, so sets off metal detectors more than she sets off her relatives. No, we can't say that. Can't set off your relatives. May make them upset, angry, become loud. No? Okay, so we know we got a comparison problem here. Let's write comparison next to it here. Well, what do you think the best way to correct this comparison is? Miss Heber?
More often than her other relatives.
You agree with that, correct?
Well, I didn't choose it, but yeah, I guess.
And yeah, you get come on. I mean, are you changing your mind, or are you just like what? I mean, Miss Eva, why don't you explain to us why you chose D?
Because then we specify which relatives.
Okay.
We're adding more information to the comparison.
Okay. All right. Okay. You see that? I mean, it makes it a little clearer now that we're comparing her going through the metal detector and her relatives going through the metal detector. She travels with her relatives all the time. Don't ask. D it is. D it is. Okay. During the first act of the play, the spotlight wobbled a little and it had destroyed the actor's concentration.
Wait, Mr. Cook, so it's 3C? Mr. President, it's supposed to be B.
B? Tell me, okay, let's go back. Tell me why you think it's B.
I mean, when he's comparing Lee's grandfather, how he's setting off the metal detector
Mm-hmm.
as the relatives did.
As her relatives do, you mean?
More often than her relatives did so. So it's not, so still means they were comparing the relatives would have the grandfather sets off the metal detector.
Excellent. But the rule here is that you don't have to have the verb after that. You don't have to have the verb after that. So actually D is saying the same thing, but it's applying the rule where you don't have to have the verb after it. Yeah, I will actually write that, right, mark that. You don't have to have the verb after. And actually it's more proper not to, but you might see in some cases where they do have the verb after. So the more proper way would be to leave it off because it's understood that that verb is going to be there. Yes?
Aren't they comparing the keys of both people, of the relatives and the grandfathers?
Well, I got the impression that they were comparing going through the metal detector or having less
But
metal.
they're going through the metal and they're detecting through the keys. So that's, I chose E. I feel like relatives and the apostrophe S.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like it goes on to the keys of the relatives.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
That's why I chose E. I feel like that's how they're comparing, right? They're being detected.
Now I think they're detecting how much the detector goes off and not what's making it go off. That's the impression I got when I read the sentence. Make some notations. Very important to make notations. You know, we want to understand. Okay. Everybody clear on that one? We're not in a rush. We're not in a rush. Not in a rush. Okay. How about this? Everybody? Okay. All right. During the first act of the play, the spotlight wobbled a little, and it had destroyed the actor's concentration. So, Kareem, can we choose A?
No.
No. So, what do you think the problem is?
Well, the tense.
Okay. So, tense is the problem. Okay. Ms. Hebo, did you find, so you're saying this may be a possible shift in verb tense issue? Yes?
Yes.
What do you think?
I agree with him because then we're talking about during the act of the play, which is like, let's say that it's now, and it says that the light, it had, and the light wobbled, so it destroyed the object.
Okay, you agree? Okay, now, I don't know if we already know this, maybe we do, but most, if not all, questions in the writing section test us for more than one thing. They got a primary thing and a secondary thing. Usually it's two grammatical concepts being tested at the same time. Sometimes you can get one, but usually you have to be able to navigate both of them in order to get the ultimate answer. Because the answer choices will correct one, sometimes will correct one, but doesn't correct the other. It's usually the answer choice that corrects both of them. And that's all about, making sure the sentence is equal, is balanced. So that's why they like to hit us with two. You'll find those, especially in the more difficult questions. You're going to get hit with two. So I think we have shift in verb tense and ambiguous pronoun. Is that what you're going to say, Miss?
No, it's just that the lights should be big. The lights.
It should be light.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay.
need to identify it, but
Because it's like not just one light, so I guess it's big. It should be big.
Oh, so you're saying pronoun agreement. Okay.
but
Okay.
shouldn't they be for the nickname?
No, but if it's plural, it
They.
But then we use it's.
Where's they? I'm confused.
should be big. No, she means when we replace it with they.
I'm
Oh,
talking
in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
So
can be
wouldn't
for
that be
non-agreement.
pronoun ambiguity?
They can sometimes be with non-agreement.
When should we do that?
When should we replace it?
Yeah, today.
Just depend. Actually, we could replace it here.
Wouldn't that ambiguous? Wouldn't that be ambiguous?
If we replaced it,
Yeah. Wouldn't that ambiguous?
well, it'd be ambiguous if there were two things preceding it, and we were confused about which two. But here, I think it's kind of clear. But so that's not really the issue. So I think it's pronoun agreement. But so we're looking for the answer choice that corrects both. Shift in verb tense and pronoun agreement.
What was the problem with the verb tense? I mean, all of them are actually the passive answer choices.
Okay. You saying? I think that what they were saying is it shouldn't do past perfect.
Why?
That it should just be. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but it should be past instead of past perfect. Is that what you were saying? Is that what you were saying, Ms. Hebo? Yeah. Okay, so let's read the sentence. During the first act of the play, the spotlight wobbled a little, and it had destroyed the actor's concentration. So when you think about past perfect, then you see that it's a little off in the meaning with the second clause. You see that, Miss Heidi?
But both of them are actually in the past tense.
Yeah, they're in the past tense. But past perfect, you remember past perfect? What is past perfect?
It's what had was.
Yeah. But what the meaning of past perfect? Okay, so everybody write past perfect down there. So who knows the meaning of past perfect? Or what?
Even when we shouldn't use it, or the definition.
Yeah. Well, both. Either or. It's fine. But I like the meaning though. What time period does past perfect represent? Is it a time that happened in the past, but we're not sure when it happened? Is it that? I'm asking everybody.
Again.
Does it represent a time that happened in the past, but we're not sure when it happened? We're not sure when it started or when it stopped in the past? Is it? Okay, so let's make sure that we, go back and we review past perfect, because I want you to know past perfect. And actually, while we're dealing with past perfect, let's deal with all the perfect tenses. Past perfect, present perfect, future perfect. Okay, so these two time periods are not happening or didn't happen at the same time in these two clauses. We got the spotlight wobbled a little, and it had destroyed. So had destroyed, it kind of implies that we're not absolutely sure when it happened, but we know it happened. But the first clause tells us we know when it happened. So we should just make it straight past tense. So in essence, we don't need the second clause. So this actually becomes a compound predicate. We can make it a compound predicate. And I believe, what did you say, Ms. Hebo, first? The answer? You did? Oh, okay. What did you say the answer?
It's D.
Yeah, it's D. So we converted it into a compound predicate. So it wobbled and destroyed. And it all happened at the same, pretty much the same time. You see that? Okay. So, pronoun agreement. Shift and verb tense. Okay. Let's look at the next one here. Selecting a new chief executive. The problems facing the company seemed more manageable to the trustees. So we got a big part of this sentence underlined. So we can choose it A, right?
No.
No. So what's wrong with it?
It's not the problem.
Huh?
It's modified.
Wow, that was quick. It's not a...
The modifier.
So it's a modifier issue. Oh, that's right up our alley. We've been talking about modifiers for last week. Write it down. Modifier. Is it dangling or misplaced?
Misplaced modifier.
Misplaced? Hebo? Misplaced?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Kareem?
Have them all?
I mean, we're doing this right now. It's like, this is what we're doing right now on the site. So that should be probably clear. That should have just jumped out in front of everybody. What's the answer, Miss Simon?
Well, I wasn't sure between B and D.
Okay.
It's one of them. I chose it, but I'm not sure because it's like the same, but just shifts when you put more manageable at the end and more manageable at the beginning. So
Take a guess. What did you ultimately, just take a guess?
chose B.
What did you choose? What did you get, Hebo?
B.
Kareem?
I don't want to say.
Oh, this
Say
is our
I-
family. Okay. It is B. But I need for you to circle that one because it's obvious.
Put more edible at the beginning.
Huh?
Why can't we put it at the end?
Well, we can't put it.
Wait, why can't we put more manageable?
Well, I tell you what, we're gonna come right here and go back over this one when we start again. But the reason I want you to circle it is because we're going over this on the site. So this can be no doubt, and you actually got information on the site you can use to help you understand it. Write down this with my in Islamic school. I'll talk about tomorrow. Yeah, that's rolling hard.
hard way. We don't want to roll quite that hard. We want to get one of them little mini buses.
Tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Everybody's gone out of their mind.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class. Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome, Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome.
Oh yeah. All right.